So good evening and good afternoon, good evening, and a very warm welcome to the session. This is a much awaited session, for us, given everything that we don't know about compliance and everything around that. So we have, Ashish leading the conversation today. Ashish Agarwal is the head for policy at NASSCOM. And then we have Praveen with us along with his teammates as well. And much awaited session, and we look at Ashish, we saw some of the questions that you were going to ask Praveen, and I think it's going to be a very useful session for our startups here. And with that, I'd like to hand over to you to introduce Praveen and the team and take it forward from here.
Thanks, Kritika. So what we have is a very interesting session. We are going to be talking with a government authority, a regulator. It's called the International Financial Services Center Authority. And we have with us Praveen Kamath. Praveen is in charge of the FinTech and cybersecurity vertical. He's also overseeing the rollout of the IFSC's regulatory sandbox. And he's also part of the team that is overseeing the operationalization of the International Bullion Exchange at the IFSCA. So before joining IFSCA, Praveen has been a long timer in the Securities Exchange Board of India, where he has been there for over a decade. And in fact, he has been responsible for designing and just rolling out the regulatory sandbox in SEBI itself. And in that sense, a very old hand when looking at startup related policies. So this discussion, Praveen, and welcome to this chat. This discussion today, I think, will be a good opportunity for you to introduce IFSCA to the larger fintech industry in NASSCOM, and really tell them about the possibilities for a wider industry participation. So, and what I will do is that from my side, I will represent the curious industry that we are, and then try to understand what does the IFSCA mean for us, and how best we can make use of this. So with that, Praveen, maybe I'll request you to just start with, maybe if you want to introduce your team, and then probably talk about, what exactly is IFSC and IFSCA, and then we will build on that. Over to you.
Thank you, Ashish, for the kind introduction. I'll just introduce my team. I'm Praveen Kamath. I'm Deputy General Manager here with the IFSCA. To my right is Ms. Ruby Rani. She is Manager with the IFSCA, and Harshjit Singh here, who is also a Manager with the IFSCA. Harshjit is on deputation from Reserve Bank of India, and Ruby is on deputation from the Ministry of Finance, while I am here on deputation from Securities and Exchange Board of India. So just to give you a brief background, see, back in 2007, during a vibrant Gujarat summit, the concept of an international financial services center at Gujarat was mooted. So the idea was put forward that why don't we have an international financial services center? Most of the top countries in the world have one, like China has in Shanghai, UK has in London, US has in New York, and so on. So you also have financial centers like Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on. So the government then started thinking on those lines, and in 2015, the International Financial Services Center at GIFT City, GIFT, GIFT stands for Gujarat International Financial Tech City. So the IFSC at GIFT City was born, and it went live in 2015, and it's a special economic zone here, the GIFT City here in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. It has two parts. One is the domestic tariff area, and the other is the international zone. Now, the regulation of the financial products, financial services, and other financial ancillary activities in the international zone, the regulation of this is done by the International Financial Services Center Authority, IFSC. We are the regulator for the IFSC now in GIFT City. Now, in 2015, when IFSC went live, there was no regulator as such. So the domestic regulators used to regulate their respective products in IFSC. For example, insurance in IFSC was regulated by IRDA. Banking in IFSC was regulated by RBI. securities vertical, that is the exchanges and the clearing corporations, were regulated by SEBI, and pension products were regulated by PFRDA. So each of the individual regulators used to look after the rollout of these corresponding services in IFSC. Now, what used to happen is that an entity which wanted to seek certain license in certain areas, it had to apply to the individual regulators as per their jurisdiction, and it had to go about doing the paperwork and compliance processes and so on. Now, over a period of time, it was found that this whole setup was not turning out to be very fruitful. Different regulators had different requirements, and things were not moving as expected. So the concept of having a unified regulator for IFSC was mooted, and the IFSC Act in 2019 was passed by Parliament. Subsequently, IFSC as an institution was created in April this year. So the organization came into being in April, and our first chairman, Mr. Indrajit Srinivas, was appointed, and then the government went about recruiting people from various government departments. So we have people from SEBI, myself included. My executive director is Mr. Manoj Kumar. He was my chief general manager in SEBI. So we have a team of 3 from SEBI here looking at the securities vertical here. You have a very good banking team from the Reserve Bank, which is looking at the banking vertical. Similarly, you have a person from IRDA who's handling the insurance. And we are a small setup, which is more like a startup. My first job was in a startup. My first job after computer engineering back in 2004 was in a tech startup, in Goa. So I used to do software development in Microsoft platform. And this was a time when it was not considered cool to work in a startup, because if you go and tell in society that you're working in a startup, people would think that, no, there's something wrong with you. If you can't get a job with Infosys, TCS or Wipro, but you're joining a local startup, then there's something definitely wrong with you. That mentality was not there, that equivalence of that standing in working in a startup was not there. So I know exactly what it is like to work in a startup, and I can, every time a person from a startup or a founder from a startup approaches me with regulatory issues or approaches me with the request to take part in our sandbox, I can immediately identify with the problems that he goes through, while going about his day-to-day business. So coming back to our organization, so once the IFSC was set up, we slowly started taking over from the domestic regulators. On October 1, Section 13 of our Act was notified. So Section 13 gives us complete powers to regulate IFSC here in GIFT City. And we have superseding powers with over all the other regulations that were earlier applicable in IFSC. So if the certain SEBI regulations which are applicable to exchanges and clearing corporations here, now we are taking over, and we have powers to make changes to those regulations for entities in IFSC. Just to give how much powers we have been endowed with. So our jurisdiction is the IFSC in India, in GIFT City, and we go about making policies and regulations in this regard. Now, if you may be aware, the finance minister earlier this year had said that the goal of for India's economy is that we want to reach a $5 trillion level for the Indian economy by in the next 5 or 6 years. And it has been visualized that fintech industry and allied fintech services can contribute up to $1 trillion to our GDP. It has an immense potential if properly tapped into. So one of the government's agenda is to develop the IFSC at GIFT City into a global fintech hub on the lines of Singapore, Hong Kong, or Dubai.
So Praveen, if I may just to close this understanding, IFSC is a special economic zone.
Yes.
As we understand, at least in terms of incentives from government, when you look at special economic zones, the tax holiday has ended, and what is so different about IFSC? Okay,
the international area, that is the IFSC in this SEC. Like I said before, the SEC is divided into 2 parts. One is the domestic tariff area, and one is your international area, which is your IFSC. That IFSC has a 10-year tax holiday. So any entity setting up office in IFSC and going about doing its business activities, after due permissions, of course, enjoys a 10-year tax holiday.
Okay, so this tax holiday. So if a startup is there, it is just being founded in 2021, and it meets the criteria, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about the criteria, then what you're saying is that for next 10 years, it will be able to enjoy the tax holiday. And similarly, a startup which will come in next year will also get a 10-year period from the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this is very interesting. So can you tell us what kind of startups are eligible for this, or is there any restriction on who can come in or not come in?
Okay. See, for our sandbox, see, one of the goals of getting startups towards achieving that goal, we issued our regulatory sandbox in October 19. Now, if you see the eligibility criteria, we are saying that all regulated entities by domestic regulators like SEBI, RBI, IRDA, PFRDA, they are eligible. Corporates and fintech startups in India are eligible. Startups that are registered with Startup India, they are all eligible to apply for the sandbox. Entities in FATF compliant jurisdiction, FATF stands for Financial Action Task Force. So entities coming from FATF compliant jurisdictions and which are regulated by their respective home regulators, they are all eligible to apply for participation in the sandbox, in IFSC's regulatory sandbox. Additionally, individuals within India and individuals from FATF compliant jurisdictions, that is individuals in foreign jurisdictions, are eligible to apply for the regulatory sandbox. So there are no, so it's a wide encompassing eligibility criteria. So the universal set for application is pretty big.
So do I have to be a necessarily already regulated entity, or can I get a first level straight away coming and incorporated and as a regulated entity under IFSCA?
You can do that. You don't need to be a regulated entity. That's not the criteria. When I was working with SEBI, when I was with SEBI's fintech team, in our SEBI sandbox, we said, yes, it's only for regulated entities because we wanted to take it slow. The securities market in India was already a very mature and developed market. So we wanted to take that experimentation process very slowly. So that's why we said level 1, only regulated entities are permitted, no startups, no unregulated entities. But here, no, we are permitting all types of entities, regulated as well as unregulated. So the entity which wishes to take part, it has to make the application, fill in the form that is specified in the circular, and we'll evaluate and give it permission to start its operations.
So even if I'm an existing startup, I could set up an office or set up, I'll need to set up a separate legal entity in IFSC to take the benefit?
You can set up a branch. You can set up a branch in IFSC and commence your operations.
And that branch operation would enjoy tax benefit?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So tell me, Praveen, very interesting. So now what you're, in addition to the tax incentive, which obviously is not available in other SEZ now with the tax holiday, you also have a unified regulator in the IFSC, which means that instead of dealing with, because pretty much, fintech rides over a lot of core regulated services,
Right.
do aggregation or, they combine data and they combine one of the financial products or they either unbundle or bundle some kind of services to create new offerings. So in that space, what do you think are the advantages which the industry should know in terms of a unified regulator?
Okay. See, the first major advantage is a one-stop shop for approval. When I was with SEBI and when we used to discuss fintech policy at the finance ministry level, with all the regulators being present, the major demand from the fintech industry was that you needed an inter-regulatory sandbox. For example, RBI has its own sandbox for banking industry, SEBI has its own sandbox for the securities vertical, insurance, IRDA has its own sandbox for insurance guys. What used to happen is that there were many fintech startups which had products which cut across different regulators, multiple regulators. So they said that if two regulators or an inter-regulatory sandbox is available, then it becomes easier for them to test these products. For example, an e-wallet company selling mutual funds. So e-wallet is regulated by Reserve Bank and mutual fund is regulated by SEBI. So our e-wallets or a new platforms selling insurance products and so on. So inter-regulatory sandbox was a big demand from the industry, and somehow it's in the works at the domestic regulator level, but it's not gone live right now. So here, as a unified regulator, the banking, securities and insurance verticals are with me, are with IFSCA. So, sandbox experimentation across domains, across verticals is very easy for us. It's very easy for us to give the approval for experimentation. It's very easy for us to evaluate it because we have the three verticals under one organization. So it's going to be very quick. So if there's a request for registration or a request for approval for taking part in the sandbox, it's going to be a one-stop shop. One place you to fill the form and give all the details, and you are in business.
So as I understand, you have just released the regulatory sandbox framework
Right.
in terms of, IFSC. So can you share with us your initial experience in terms of any feedback from the industry, or how it has been received?
Okay, we've got plenty of interest, more from overseas than from India.
Okay.
I was a bit surprised when I reached out to a lot of Indian innovation hubs, you can say, that they were not aware of our sandbox. This is one thing. I got a lot of calls and emails from entities overseas. So these were highly interested in taking part in the sandbox, and they were just saying that they're evaluating the growth of IFSC and how they can use IFSC to as a platform to roll out services in Asia Pacific and in the Middle East. This was the first priority area for them. Because of COVID lockdown issues and other related movement restrictions, they were a bit held back. But the interest was huge, and they're willing to come here. And they're just waiting for this IFSC to just go slightly up in the maturity scale. So a lot of queries from startups overseas. In fact, I would say 80% of the queries came from startups overseas.
That's very interesting, because one of the things that we often hear in conversation in India is that, once you have a startup, once it starts doing well, or it has a traction in terms of its business model, then it probably is looking for funding, raising funds, and that's when you start looking at Singapore or other places, both in terms of growth and raising capital. So,
Right.
So I understand what you mentioned in terms of the tax advantages, in terms of the regulatory simplicity, in terms of a unified regulator. But is there something to look forward to in terms of ease of raising funds, or also access to capital itself?
Okay, that's a very good question. We are currently working on policy to enable fundraising for startups. In the case of SEBI, if you see, SEBI has something known as an Innovators Growth Platform. So it's a separate platform on the stock exchange for startups to list and raise capital. We are working on those lines to consider exchange-based platforms as well as non-exchange-based platforms as well. You have certain fundraising platforms based in Hong Kong and Singapore, where the startups and angel investors and venture capital funds, they come and meet on the platform and they negotiate funding deals, stake sale, and so on. So it's mostly sort of a over-the-counter operation, and it's one single platform where you have startups at one end and investors on the other hand. So it enables them to negotiate the deals very efficiently. So we are working on those lines to enable certain platforms. We have also got queries from a few platforms overseas to set up operations here, which we are currently considering. We want to take it slowly. We don't want to go and enable everything at one go and then go about regulating or creating a mess. We just want to do it step by step. So fundraising definitely is one aspect which we are seriously considering, and you can expect a lot of policy decisions happening in this regard over the coming months.
Okay, so now when you lay out all those advantages, and we know that there are similar kind of ecosystems abroad which are available. So so if you were to compare, from a fintech perspective, that when you look at Singapore or even say Dubai, then how does the ecosystem compare? And for somebody who's probably looking at Singapore, what difference does it really make in terms of opting for IFSC? Any thoughts?
Okay. See, Singapore has a 5-year head start over us. Okay, this is they started in 2015, and they have brilliantly developed that. They brilliantly established a beautiful fintech hub in Singapore. Singapore has a special grant, okay, as a special fund which is used to give grants to startups which are setting shop in Singapore. Based on the merits of the case, it's a non-refundable grant given by the Monetary Authority of Singapore to these startups for setting up office and for stimulating economic activity in Singapore. Right now, I do not have that big a purse. I'm told that the grant, the size of that corpus is around $250 million. I don't have a big purse like that, but what I can tell you is this. Since see, the day IFSCA was created, if you see the composition of our authority, okay, you have representations, one member each from the domestic regulators. You have executive director from SEBI on our authority. You have a person from Reserve Bank of India. You have a person from PFRDA and IRDA. The reason why these representations are there in our authority is that in case there is any friction or if there is any ambiguity between the regulations in IFSCA and the regulations in India, and if there's any conflict, it becomes very easy to sort out these differences and these conflicts. So it becomes very smooth to iron out issues with the domestic regulators if you are coming through IFSCA. So this is one big advantage that a startup is going to have. So if you have any regulatory ambiguity over testing over your product, and if you set up shop in IFSCA and you want to roll out something in India as well, the interface that we have with the domestic regulators is a definitely big advantage that any person is going to enjoy. So regulatory clarity will come to you very fast than in normal course.
Okay, I think I completely agree with you that, just in terms of the fact that Singapore has had a little bit of a slight head start, but I think we could also be having the second comer advantage, and we could probably learn from what they have done and probably do a lot better in the years to come.
Right. I wanted to add is that, see, we have a 5 million strong software developer community in India, and we have a very strong startup ecosystem in India. So the very fact that a startup wants to go to Singapore to roll out its services is basically a slap on our face. Let me be honest with you. If Singapore can provide an Indian startup with certain ecosystem, why can't I do the same? So we are working hard to provide that ecosystem here. Like I said, we have just started, we just rolled out the sandbox in October. So just give me a few months and we will prove to you that we can set up an infrastructure that is world-class and unbeatable. So the startup can come here and set up shop and go about doing its business with minimal regulatory burden and quick regulatory approvals. That is what I can assure you. I can give a definite promise. In a couple of months or in 3 months, you will see a big change in policy developments here in IFSCA.
So that's great to hear, Praveen, and we at NASSCOM will be happy to create awareness and create more meetings with the industry to take this forward with you. In fact, that brings me to this question, that what is the engagement model with the industry? Have you thought about it that, how can industry participate a little more closely if they have suggestions or if they have queries? And maybe I'm not aware, but you already have a system in place. Anything that you can share on that?
Right now, we have a development team, a dedicated development team in IFSCA that is reaching out to different industry hubs. We have had conversations with 3 or 4 industry hubs, both in India and overseas. So there's no fixed way to approach us in the sense. My contact coordinates are in the public domain. So anybody wants to discuss fintech development or fintech or give suggestions, they're all welcome. They can call me or they can send me an email and I'll definitely respond to them. So this is one way of doing it. But if startups want to use the NASSCOM platform to give suggestions in bulk to NASSCOM, and maybe if NASSCOM can collate these suggestions and forward it to IFSCA, I am also open to that idea. In fact, I am very comfortable in working with you, Ashish. We've had a very good rapport for over the last 18 months, and I'm okay to working with you also to getting feedback on fintech policy and other matters.
Okay, great. That's something that we will take back as some feedback from you, and we will definitely try and build on that. So I'm again going to jump a little bit sideways, but we are in midst of COVID.
Right.
This has impacted everybody's plans.
Right.
Last 9 months. So there are 2 aspects to this. One, I just want to query in terms of your own IFSC plans. Have you seen an impact of this coming through, and probably you want to talk about that. And second is that we are seeing a large trend in the industry that, while IT and tech industry, more generally services industry in some sense was kind of the front runner when it came to stuff like, work from anywhere or work from home. But what has happened is that we have experienced over the last 9 months that, so currently as we speak, about 85-90% of our industry is working remotely.
Right.
this is a response to the pandemic, and we don't probably expect this to be the long-term normal, but we don't see the long-term normal also being everybody going back to offices. What we do see is that, either some portion of the work or some portion of the employees, maybe 30%, 40%, we don't know what that number might be, maybe 60% in some areas or some firms will actually be working remotely. So when we talk to the SEZ authorities, for example, when we talk to Ministry of Commerce more generally, I think we are also in advanced stages to discuss with them and to say that how can more long-term, work from anywhere be kind of recognized in an SEZ model. So while I understand that it is a bit of a contradiction, when you think of a SEZ, you think of a notified area, you are expected to carry out work from there. But this is a new reality. So on both the points, the COVID impact more generally and this policy shift that we have seen in the industry, your thoughts?
See, to be practical, work from home is something remote telecommuting, as the term suggests. It's going to be a norm till the time this COVID issue subsides. With respect to IFSC, I would like to say is that if a company wants to dish out its business, roll out its business in IFSC, it needs to have a physical presence here. So that means it has to take an office space here, lease or buy office space here, and appoint a designated person at that office in IFSC to roll out its services. And this will enable it to avail of the tax benefits and other benefits that the IFSC offers. Having said that, we are not against telecommuting or remote work. If you see the exchanges and clearing corporations that are functioning in IFSC, more than 50% of the staff is working from home. Only the core surveillance and day-to-day operational functions, for that where people are absolutely necessary in the data center, only those staff will be in office. They'll be coming to office on a daily basis and working. Those are mission critical processes which cannot be compromised through telecommuting, because of the sensitivity of the data and the other processes that are, allied processes that are associated with it. So we are not against telecommuting or remote work. We are open to it. We don't have any guidance or any suggestions in this regard, but yes, you will require a startup wishing to avail of benefits in IFSC. We will need a physical presence here. You have to open an office. Once you open an office, how you plan to get your workforce to go about their day-to-day activities is strictly with you. We will not. We don't want to micromanage that activity to that level. But there are certain areas where physical presence cannot be compromised. For example, we just issued a circular on enabling stockbrokers from foreign jurisdictions to set up a branch office in IFSC and roll out their services. In that circular, if you see, the stockbrokers required, the foreign stockbrokers required to open a physical office in IFSC, and he needs to have a person here in IFSC to monitor the compliance function, as well as you have made it mandatory for the broker to set up his trading servers in IFSC. It should be located in IFSC. So these areas are a few places where we cannot compromise. But that trading server, though it may be located in IFSC, it can be remotely managed from USA or USSR or Japan or wherever. We don't have an issue with regards to that. So I take your point regarding remote work being the new normal. We don't want to go into that micromanagement level, but we are open to suggestions from NASSCOM or any startups in this regard as to how we can tailor our policy. And if a policy is required, I'm okay to work on it. I'm willing to work on it.
Okay, that's in fact great to hear, and that will probably address some of the basic concerns that industry might have. And so tell me, we have just one IFSC today, and I know it is the initial stage, so we always start with one. So, but are there any thoughts? Because look at Bangalore. Bangalore is the tech hub, and obviously Mumbai is closer to you. It's the financial hub. But when you're talking about physical offices, so is there also a thought to go beyond one?
Well, that would be the government's decision, but I don't want to give a direct comment on that. But if you see our acronym of our organization, it is International Financial Services Centers, plural, Authority. So obviously, going forward, the authority is meant to regulate more than one IFSC. But at the moment, we'll have one IFSC in Gift City. And we would like to develop it into a world-class IFSC, and then subsequently, if required, then we can replicate that model across the country, like you said, in maybe in those areas, those cities.
Okay, okay, great. That's well understood. So again, coming back to this regulatory ecosystem. So we understand that there are all these unique regulatory enablements that are available in IFSC in terms of unified regulator, in terms of a very let's say open and progressive regime which is trying to encourage the startup ecosystem. But it's still in India. So then just to correct me, all the other laws will apply as it is, right? So for example, we have a data protection law coming up and so on and so forth. So all the other regulatory framework which comes into in India, that applies as it is, isn't it? Or
Yes.
Or there is a difference?
Yeah, see, the data protection bill, if it's passed in Parliament, will apply to IFSC. It will apply. But when it comes to domestic regulators, we have taken over here now. So if the domestic regulators make changes in their respective regulations in India, that doesn't apply to IFSC. The changes that only we make now will apply to IFSC. So we may make changes which may not be possible in the domestic jurisdictions, but that will apply only in IFSC, and it would apply to the rest of India. And similarly, otherwise.
And just to complete that picture, on the GST law, does it apply as it is, or is there also any difference?
Right now, we have sought clarity from GST. That clarity is awaited, but we'll clarify that in due course. We have got queries regarding that application of GST here. Some announcement is due.
Okay. So that's again good to hear in terms of that. That's already under consideration. So one of the things, it has been a matter of some I wouldn't use the word regulatory tension, but some kind of concerns where we have seen that while there is a fledgling market for crypto trading in India, and there are a lot of fintechs which provide wallet services, which provide platforms. In fact, there's also probably an industry body which came up to look at the entire crypto market, and we know that RBI for many reasons, particularly on consumer protection side, has kind of not looked at it as something that they would like to promote and or even enable in some sense, because even in the regulatory sandbox we are not. It seems that that will not be tested out. So when you come at and look at IFSC, and when you specifically look at this entire fintech industry around crypto, how do you look at it?
Well, cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Ethereum, I can only go by the government's comfort. If the government is not comfortable with permitting experimentation in cryptocurrency, then we will not enable it. We will not do anything that is against the law of the land or against the wishes of the government. This is point one. So cryptocurrency at the moment will be on the back burner. We won't be considering it at the moment. However, underlying technology like tokenization is something which we are willing to consider for our regulatory sandbox. To give an idea, we are going to soon operationalize a bullion exchange in IFSC. That exchange will deal with spot trading of gold, physical gold, as well as unrefined gold in IFSC. As you may be aware, India has a huge gold market. We import around 800 tons of gold every year, most of it in raw form and some of it in refined form. Now, this exchange, in this bullion exchange that we are going to set up, there will be price discovery of gold. Gold demand for mainland India will be routed through this bullion exchange. That is how we plan to do things. So a lot of gold will be traded in the spot market. And gold will be across different denominations like 250 grams gold, 1 gram, 1 kilogram gold bar, and so on. Now, if we want to enable small-scale investors to take part in this gold trading, then tokenization of gold transactions is something which we are willing to look at. That is fractional trading of gold in tokenized form. Similar idea was mooted by a few startups when I was with SEBI for tokenization of securities as well. So, of course, that will be based in a distributed ledger. The tokens will be distributed on a distributed ledger. So, we are willing to consider experimentation with respect to tokenization and allied technologies, you can say.
Okay, so I'm actually going to just have one more question, and then probably we'll look at a couple of points which have come in the Q&A, and then there is a little bit time. So anything which you want to either stress on or further add, we'll have a little bit of time for that. So when you look ahead, next 6 months to 12 months period, in terms of, purely from a point of view of regulatory ecosystem, as well as from a point of view of physical infrastructure, because that's something that we have not yet discussed. Can you tell us that what is it that industry can expect so today and going forward in terms of physical infrastructure, as well as in terms of regulatory ecosystem? What else are you going to be probably working on forward?
Okay. With respect to physical infrastructure, I would like to brief the audience that see, GIFT City is built as a smart city. It has been planned as a smart city. There is a widespread optic fiber cable network here. You have fantastic electricity supply here. The road infrastructure is world class, and in the entire IFSC, you have something known as utility tunnels. So the major utility services like electricity, water, waste management, and so on are going through underground tunnels. So suppose tomorrow one new company wants to come and lay fiber optic cables in IFSC, all it has to do is to go through the utility tunnels which are underground. So no digging, no excavation, no repair, no maintenance is required. So this utility tunnel network is there, and you can go about laying the infrastructure. So the infrastructure is world class. There's no issue at all. With regards to office space, a lot of buildings are coming up here. World-class buildings built on world-class standards, So all this fire hazard standards and the safety standards and all are followed. So you'll find buildings of the same caliber as you find in IFSCs like Singapore or Dubai. So office space is available right now today itself. Lot more square feet of office space will come up in the next 6 months. If you may see the IFSC through Google Maps, you will just see how much construction activity is going on here. So you have a functional data center here. STT Singapore Telecom and Telemedia has a huge data center here, which is there for lease as well. And we plan to make IFSC into a data center hub as well. So we are working on policy in that regard. And once the data protection bill is passed, you see, data protection bill also looks at data localization. So in the event that localization clause is enabled in the bill, then we are ready with the infrastructure to enable companies to set up their own data centers here. So that physical infrastructure is ready here. So we can give permissions overnight and get things moving. So with respect to ease of doing business, this is a totally different type of jurisdiction. You will get approvals very quickly. The team that is handling the physical infrastructure in IFSC is the GIFT team. GIFT House, Gujarat, the state government team, which is also sitting here in IFSC, and they are very dynamic and they are very prompt. So they will all the physical clearances that you require for setting up your office and all will be done in no time. Regulatory approvals will be handled by us, and rest assured, as long as you submit the right paperwork, your approvals are going to be given within 48 hours. No issues at all there. So you will be able to set up business here in IFSC, in a very, very short time. So the wait time is very less. And the infrastructure is world class. So this is the current situation. Now, in the next 6 months, a lot of things are planned. One is the bullion exchange will go live in the next 6 months. So spot trading of gold will happen in IFSC, and there is going to be such huge volumes given the interest that it has generated. A lot of participants from overseas again are interested in contributing to this bullion exchange and the allied activities. So in 6 months down the line, you're going to see a hell lot of economic activity happening here. A lot of foreign banks are going to set up shop here. Foreign brokerage firms are going to come here. And the concept of global in-house center, we are already in touch with a few entities. Global in-house centers will be established here. So each global in-house center, we envisage at least 4,000 to 5,000 people to be working in one GIC. So a lot of employment is going to be generated, and the entire economic activity in this area is going to grow exponentially. So this is what I can officially tell you. A lot of things are in the works, which I cannot disclose at the moment because of my code of conduct. So, but you can keep watching our website, www.ifsca.go.in. Every week there is a circular or a policy document that is uploaded there. And if you may see the pace at which the policy changes are happening, in the next 6 months, you can expect us to be ahead by at least 4 steps, 4 levels.
Okay, again, thank you, Praveen. This is very useful to get a sense. So I'm now quickly turning to, I see a couple of questions. So I'm going to paraphrase the question. See, many times from a fintech perspective, we look at regulation and whether justifiably or not, we have a feeling as an industry that the regulatory threshold or barriers are set a little too high.
Okay.
Just for example, let's say capital requirements, right? So, then now there's a question from audience to say that, you need a startup need at least 15 crores to be a payment aggregator.
Okay.
So, and clearly, people in the business of payment aggregator don't hold funds. They don't hold consumer funds. They are more in terms of technology enabling the transactions. A lot of time they don't even own the end data, in the sense that data itself might also be residing either with NPCI or with the banks. So, and then if you extrapolate this to look at the entire idea of a virtual bank, let's say in future, without a branch, which is already there in terms of what RBI also enabled in some form. So, but when you start looking at IFSC as a dedicated authority, distinct from the domestic regulators, then is there some thinking on how IFSCA might be thinking of these kind of regulations?
Yeah, there are two things, 2 ways to approach this. See, the capital adequacy and the capital net worth requirements that we put in place in our regulations, that is there from a fail-safe standpoint, from a risk management perspective. However, we are open to working with industry to work out a more suitable solution where startups are not unnecessarily overburdened with huge capital requirements. We understand that startups initially have, in the early stages, have issues with funding. They have issues with capital adequacy and so on. So we are willing to consider, we are willing to engage in meaningful dialogue with the startups and work out a solution in this regard. We are open to it. Startups may feel free to approach us in this regard. And if you see our sandbox document, we have said that net worth requirements, it is one parameter where we are going to consider relaxation, at least for testing in the sandbox. So once the entity successfully tests its solution in the sandbox, and if it is felt that the entity can roll out its services with a lower net worth requirement, then we are willing to change the guidelines. We are open to changing the guidelines. And I can also tell you that IFSC is very flexible with respect to fintech. If we find that there is a new industry or a new product that has come, we are willing to tailor our regulations to suit that product, provided it has genuine merits, and genuine benefits for IFSC as well as for the rest of the country. So we are willing to tailor our regulations to suit that product. We want to act as an enabler to the fintech solution or the fintech business model. So this is what I can assure you. But exact quantum of net worth or capital adequacy restriction is something which I can't tell upfront. But yes, I am willing to consider it.
I think this is a good point to examine, because a lot of the fintech industry really looks at this risk-based regulation and anything which we can break new ground in terms of probably testing lower thresholds would be definitely seen very positively by the industry, and probably would also be good for IFSC. Another question, and probably final question here from the audience, which we'll pick up, is that, so now you have a separate authority, and if you take a typical SEBI function, and since you have been in SEBI, that's why I'm probably using that as an example. If you were to take a typical SEBI function being undertaken as part of SEBI and now as part of IFSCA, has anything changed?
Well, a lot has changed. In fact, in SEBI, everything is crystallized. It's hard-coded because SEBI has gone through that maturity cycle, So a lot of processes, internal processes with regards to policy approval and so on, it's hard-coded. It's tried and tested. It's hard-coded and done. And SEBI, we are regulating already, a developed market, you can say. We are just taking it further up. Here we are starting from scratch, so we can't think. I cannot use my SEBI thought process over here, honestly speaking, because I need to get this ground moving very fast. So I'm willing to come out of my comfort zone and think outside the box and take on more risks. In SEBI, if you see, when it comes to experimentation, the first priority is the retail investor. SEBI will never allow any product, any policy to roll out where there is a risk to the retail investor, period. If the retail investor is at risk or is at a disadvantage, that policy is not going to come. That product is not going to roll out. We'll ensure that it is done that way. In IFSC there's no retail investor today. Okay, all the investors are institutional players, and therefore my risk appetite here is slightly higher than I'm not overburdened by retail investor production concept over here in IFSC. So I would say that my risk appetite is higher and my thought process is slightly more dynamic.
Okay, I think again something we picked up from the participants' query. So in fact, I'm just going to summarize at least key things which I heard from this conversation, and obviously then I'll request you to add if I missed something. So one, we are looking at a new regulatory ecosystem backed by a world-class physical infrastructure.
Absolutely.
We are looking at a highly incentivized tax regime for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
At a regulatory regime which is willing to work with the startup ecosystem, fintech ecosystem to actually tailor the regulatory regime based on what are the emerging trends and businesses as they expand. And obviously, there is a lot more that is going to come up in next 6 months to 12 months. So the fintech which kind of take this early advantage of actually testing out their ideas in the GIFT City. So whether their focus is domestic market and later on they have a global ambition, or even at a starting stage, if they have a global ambition for both kind of fintechs, this could be an ideal incubation ground.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. So do you want to add anything? Have I missed something, or we can probably hand it over to?
No, you probably covered everything. Yeah.
All right, great. So it was a pleasure talking to you and to interact over this interesting topic, and we hope to build on this conversation. So Kritika, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish, and thank you, Praveen. That was a wonderful session. In fact, whenever we meet startups, most of the queries and questions revolve around the regulatory compliances part, and we are glad that we were able to help out or take up some solutions for this particular session. And I'm sure that we'll have a lot of queries regarding this, and we may collate this and get back to you for some of your thoughts. So I take the opportunity again to thank your time and in fact your valuable conversation. And for the audience to participate in the NASSCOM India FinTech Award, please visit the link which is shown in the chat section. So look forward to meet you in another knowledge series session. And thank you once again and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you.
Thanks. Good speaking to you, Praveen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.